Good day, senior high icons. Welcome to ICI AP My E-Class. I'm Mr. Aldrin G. Sikitin, a faculty of Immaculate Conception Polytechnic Senior High School under the General Academic Strand. This semester, I will be handling English 400 or 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world.
Okay, so good day everyone. I'm here again to discuss a new topic. So today we will be talking about the AlDub phenomenal love story. Yes, you heard it right. You've seen it right. We will be talking about the love story of Yaya Dub and Alden Richards. Yeah. So, before we discuss the story, let me introduce first the writer of the story. So the writer of the story is Miss Samantha Kirsten T. Lucas. So Miss Samantha Kirsten Lucas is a creative project associate and she graduated at the Pamantasang Lungsod ng Maynila. So aside from those information, I have found nothing about her. So you've seen her face, that's her face. That's the writer of the story. So the story that you are about to interpret and analyze is entitled From A to D. So after reading the text, after reading the piece, I want you to answer the question, what do you think is the meaning of the letters A and D? I will give you a clue. It can be a description, it can be a person, or it can be persons or people, it can be descriptions. Yan. So those are the possible meaning of the title. So we will just apply the constructionism and new historicism in analyzing this text. The constructionism in a way or in a sense that you will analyze the text, you will answer the questions after reading the text based on your own understanding and interpretation. And we will also be using new historicism because we're going to somehow look at the life of the author, even though we have found less information about her. So we're going to somehow associate herself, or we're going to associate Miss Samantha to the text. Okay? So titingnan po natin kung ano ba yung naging buhay ni Miss Samantha and ano yung naging epekto nun doon sa pagkakasulat niya nung text, doon sa meaning, doon sa beauty and creativity nung text. Ayan. So, once na binabasa nyo na po yung text, or once na nandun na kayo, or after nyo mabasa yung text, I want you to answer these guide questions. Ayan. So, uunahin ko na po siyang ibigay para kapag nagbabasa na kayo ay you're already guided. You know what to look for. You know what to observe and consider while reading the text. So the first question is, try to describe the fandom culture that the AlDub phenomenon has created. So I want you to characterize, I want you to look at the traits or the characteristics of AlDub fans, or the what we call AlDub Nation or Aldenatics or Maiden International, Maiden National, and so on and so forth. And so I want you to characterize them, the AlDub fans. And then question number 2, what do you think was the formula for the popularity of AlDub? Ayan. So we all know that AlDub or their love story is a record-breaking story. Ayan. So, hindi lang dito sa Pilipinas sila nakilala, kundi sa buong mundo. Ayan. Kaya nga, di ba, meron po tayong AlDub International. Ayan. So, meron tayong Maiden International kasi kahit na sa ibang bansa nag-click yung kanilang love story. So, ang gusto ko ay himayin nyo kung ano yung mga factors na nakaapekto dun sa pagsikat nung AlDub. And then, the third question, ayan. So, what can be inferred about the traits of 21st century viewers if you are to base it on the fandom of AlDub Love Team? Ayan. So, kung i-characterize or i-describe natin yung mga viewers nowadays, ano ba yung characteristics nila? Ano ba yung description na aakma doon sa kanila kung i-base natin yon or i-base natin yung characteristics na yon sa fans ng AlDub. Ayan. So, you may enumerate those characteristics and so later on your activity. So, next we have literary journalism. So, from A to D, or the text that Samantha have written or has written is an example of literary journalism. So, this type of literature or literary piece emerged in 1960s. So, yung popularity niya ay nagsimula noong 1960s pataas up to day. So, until today, ginagamit pa rin naman po or nag-e-exist pa rin naman si literary journalism. So, literary journalism is a genre that bears close affinity to journalistic writing. So, if you will observe and try to distinguish or try to describe or look for the characteristic of literary journalism, you may find that it has similarity or it has the same component as journalistic writing or katulad siya ng mga news report. So, sports news. Ayan. So, yung mga yung mga text na magpa-fall under journalistic writing. So, meron silang pagkakatulad. Maybe the concept of writing or the content has similarities or has a similarity to journalistic writing. Ayan. So, sometimes literary journalism is called narrative journalism. So, it is a style of reportage that presents true story in a more narrative way, using storytelling techniques to create a gripping and personal form of journalism. So, sabi ko nga po kanina, meron siyang similarities kay journalistic writing. The difference is that kay literary journalism, you may use your own style in writing the text. Unlike kay journalistic writing, meron na tayong mga form or meron na tayong mga standard na structure na sinusunod kapag magsusulat ng journalistic piece or journalism pieces or texts. Yun yung somehow difference ni literary journalism and journalistic writing. And then, so unlike traditional journalism, which is quite quite restrained kasi nga po meron nga po tayong standard structure na sinusunod. Ayan. So, unlike traditional journalism that requires the detachment of the writer from his or her subject, ayan. And then, di ba nga po kay journalistic writing, kailangan wala tayong bias. Okay? So, medyo less yung opinion na binibigay ni writer. In literary journalism, the writer or the piece may involve the narrator's closeness to the topic, literally and figuratively. So, in literary journalism, it often inserts, or the writer often inserts himself or herself into the story via first person narration. So dito po, you're going to tell the story in your own perspective. Ayan. So, unlike the typical news media, which can be very dry, sorry for the term. Ayan. So, very dry because of the information na ginagamit natin and then the way of writing. Literary journalists or the writers of this form may use an engaging writing style to create memorable stories. Yun po yung difference kay journalistic writing, standard form. Okay? So, yung structure na sinusunod natin ay built na. Okay? Ready-made. You will just follow and then supply the information needed. Kay literary journalism po, if you have your own style in writing and your own taste of information and techniques or strategies in writing your piece, pwede natin siyang i-apply kay literary journalism. And then, so it may involve some research on the part of the author to make a compelling and credible discussion of the topic. So, since literary journalism combines factual reporting with narrative techniques and stylistic strategies traditionally associated with fiction, so kahit po artistic and creative yung pagkakasulat natin, it's a must for the writer to look for valid and credible information and sources and resources. And so, kailangan po madepensahan pa rin naman natin yung ating perspective and point of view. Ayan. So, again, literary journalism is a type of creative nonfiction that is similar to personal essay, travel writing, and long-form journalism. If you will observe those pieces or texts that I have mentioned, all of them are creatively done or creative or artistic yung pagkakasulat. And then it contains factual information and evidences. So yun yung characteristic ni literary journalism. It contains facts or evidences or events and situations that happened or transcribed or transpired in the real world, but those information are presented in a creative and artistic way of writing. So, yun yung basic description ni literary journalism. Ayan. Next, we have international and local writers who are identified or who are seen using this kind of form or style of writing. So foreign writers who are identified using this genre are Truman Capote. We also have Norman Mailer and Joan Didion. And then local writers or Filipino writers using this type of text, we have Nick Joaquin. We also have Jose Dalisay and Krip Yuson. So some information about Nick Joaquin. Ayan. So he is regularly writing his literary journalism pieces in the Philippines Free Press under his pseudonym Quijano de Manila. If you will observe his pen name, the word Quijano is a jumbled letter version of his surname. So, kapag medyo nilaro-laro mo yung letters ng kanyang surname, you will come up with the word Quijano. So, those are some information about literary journalism as a type of literary piece. So, now I will give you time to read the text from A to D. Ayan, again, wag mong kakalimutan yung um, question ko kanina na what do you think is the meaning of the title of the text from A to D? And so, gusto ko pong bigyan nyo ng meaning yung title. Ano kaya yon? Yung A to D or yung letters A and D kaya ay pertaining to a person or to persons or to people, or are they pertaining to certain characteristic? Ayan. So, and then after reading the text, you will go back to the questions that I have raised a while ago. Ayan. So, question number 1, again, I want you to describe the culture that the AlDub phenomenon has created. I want you to enumerate their traits or the characteristic of their culture. Anong uri ng fans? Ano yung characteristic ng fans na yon? And then, what do you think was the formula for the popularity of AlDub? Ano ba yung meron dun sa dalawa? Bakit nag-click yung story nila dun sa madla or sa Filipino people or even international or foreign people? And then last is what can be inferred about the traits of 21st century viewers if you are to base it on the fandom of AlDub Love Team. Ayan. So, kung titingnan natin or kung i-describe natin yung viewers nowadays based dun sa fans ng AlDub, ano nga ba yung mga characteristics? Ano nga ba yung mga traits nila? Okay?